In an instant he was separated from his wife by two worlds. Robin was smashed into a puddle of flesh by the speeding superhero. Everything happened so suddenly that it wasn't until blood splattered on Huey's face that he turned around in a daze to look at A-Train not far away. A-Train gave a perfunctory explanation and then disappeared down the street at lightning speed. Huey held his wife's still warm hands, feeling utterly helpless. Afterwards, not only did A-Train fail to publicly apologize, but he also blamed Robin for standing in the middle of the road, delaying his pursuit of a criminal to protect his public image. A-Train even sent a lawyer to get Huey to sign a non-disclosure agreement, offering only $45,000 in compensation. Did human life really mean so little to them? Huey was furious and angrily chased the lawyer out of his house. But in a world coexisting with superpowered beings, as an ordinary person, he felt utterly powerless. The only way he could think of to numb himself was with alcohol. Even the beer in the supermarket was endorsed by his enemy. At the checkout, Huey collapsed helplessly to the ground. Huey thought he would never be able to avenge his wife. But then something unexpected happened. A man claiming to be a federal agent found Huey and revealed an unknown truth. Those so-called superheroes kill hundreds of innocent civilians every year, but the facts are always covered up by their company, Vought International. Billy, as a vigilante, punishes them in his own way whenever he discovers those bastards crossing the line. In the past, Huey would have thought this man was crazy. Going against superpowered beings as an ordinary person was undoubtedly suicidal. But now, Huey thought, what did he have to lose? So he followed Billy to an underground bar. This was the Soups Club for superpowered individuals. Billy showed Huey a video, and Huey couldn't believe that his cherished wife had become a drunken topic of conversation for A-Train. A-Train told another superpowered individual that when he crashed into Robin, he was running so fast that he swallowed one of Robin's teeth, which was as disgusting as swallowing a bug. After saying that, the two of them laughed heartily. Huey finally understood that human life was nothing but a joke to them. He made up his mind to make those superpowered beings pay for their blood debts. To expose these bastards, he decided to use the non-disclosure agreement as an excuse to plant a bug at Vought International, so he could track their movements. After successfully passing security, Huey arrived at the conference room in 7 Tower. A-Train and the lawyers were also there, but in Huey's eyes, A-Train was still that bloody figure. However, he had to endure it, otherwise, the plan would fail. Understanding this, Huey immediately calmed down. Before signing the agreement, Huey asked to go to the bathroom, where he prepared to take out the bug hidden in his phone case. Unexpectedly, his hand slipped and the bug fell out. At that moment, Starlight suddenly walked into the bathroom. Fortunately, she was preoccupied with fixing her makeup and didn't notice anything unusual. After Starlight left, Huey quickly picked up the bug and left. But Huey could never have imagined that Translucent had a perverse peeping habit, and he saw everything. When Huey returned to the conference room, he signed the agreement while stealthily placing the bug under the table. The mission was completed smoothly, and Huey felt an exhilarating rush from acting like a secret agent, but his excitement was quickly extinguished. Billy had only seen Huey as a pawn, and now that the mission was over, he discarded Huey without a second thought. After tearing up the check, Huey returned to his job as a regular sales clerk, but Translucent was not about to let him off the hook. Huey clearly feels someone walk in, but he can't see the other person, only the bug floating in the air. Translucent suddenly grabbed Huey's name tag and slammed him hard onto the counter, initiating a one-sided beatdown. Huey was utterly defenseless but still refused to betray Billy. When Translucent saw Huey wouldn't crack, he picked up a television, ready to smash it down and kill Huey. In the nick of time, Billy drove straight into the store, sending Translucent flying several meters. Billy then grabbed a crowbar and fiercely swung it at the collapsed wall, but missed. Translucent kicked Billy away. Unable to see his opponent, Billy was beaten helplessly by Translucent, and all his attacks were effortlessly countered by Translucent. Thinking quickly, Billy spit a mouthful of blood at Translucent, making him visible. Billy then began to fight back with his fists. However, Translucent's abilities went beyond invisibility. His carbon-based body was nearly indestructible, and he soon overpowered Billy. Just then, Huey crawled over and tried to use a high-voltage wire to attack. Billy notices this and pretends to surrender to distract Translucent, but Huey ran into trouble. The wire wasn't long enough, and the noise he made drew Translucent's attention. At that moment, Billy smirked and kicked Translucent right into the wire Huey was holding. The powerful electric current finally brought Translucent down. rendering him motionless. It turned out that the high conductivity of the carbon-based material was Translucent's only weakness. Billy recognized Huey's bravery and quick thinking, deciding to recruit him, but Huey panicked, knowing that Translucent was one of the 7, and if anyone found out he had taken down Translucent, he'd be in deep trouble. They put Translucent's body in the trunk, planning to bury him somewhere hidden. Suddenly, there was a noise from the trunk. It turned out that even the high voltage hadn't killed Translucent. Now they had an even bigger problem: how to kill the invulnerable Translucent. So Billy sought out his former partner, Frenchie, a professional assassin who might have a solution. When Frenchie saw the 2 audacious guys had kidnapped Translucent, he panicked and pulled out his gun, telling them to get lost. Every superhero had a tracking chip, and Frenchie didn't want to get involved, but Billy forced Frenchie to join them.
This is not my problem, huh?
Well, it is now. He knows what you look like.
Thus, the boys were officially formed. They took Translucent to an abandoned factory, covering the room in aluminum foil to disrupt the tracking chip and wiring the cage with high-voltage electricity to prevent Translucent from escaping. Translucent woke up and immediately started cursing at them, but as soon as he touched the cage, he was hit by high-voltage electricity and quickly surrendered. The group then began discussing ways to kill Translucent. Frenchie explained that the carbon-based compound of Translucent's skin was as hard as diamonds and almost impossible to penetrate. Everyone who had tried to kill Translucent before had ended up being killed by him. If they didn't manage to kill him within 6 hours, they were all doomed. They began experimenting with various methods. Frenchie first tried a series of approaches, eventually creating a massive bullet. The bullet's tip was made from the same material as Translucent's skin, but when they fired it, the bullet ricocheted off the walls several times without penetrating Translucent's body, earning them more taunts from him. The bullet's impact tore a hole in the aluminum foil, causing Vought International to immediately detect that Translucent was in Jersey City. However, due to the signal interference, they couldn't pinpoint his exact location. A search team soon began scouring the streets of Jersey City. With time running out, Frenchie tried using a power drill, but it was also ineffective. While they were at a loss, a tortoise on the television suddenly inspired Frenchie. He grabbed an electric shock baton and knocked Translucent out again. He realized that, like a tortoise, Translucent's shell was hard, but his internal organs were just like any normal person's. So, if they attacked from the inside, they could easily destroy Translucent. However, if they made Translucent swallow a bomb, he might vomit it out, leaving only one option. Translucent instantly wimped out knowing he had a bomb planted in his colon. To save his life, he immediately sold out his teammate A-Train, revealing that A-Train had a beloved girlfriend named Popclaw whom he visited frequently. With the information they needed, Billy was ready to detonate the bomb and kill Translucent, but Frenchie stopped him. Frenchie had noticed something unusual on the surveillance footage, a shadow rapidly approaching them. It was Homelander, the strongest member of the 7. Homelander had X-ray vision, laser eyes, and super hearing. If they detonated the bomb, their location would be exposed immediately. Their top priority now was to divert Homelander's attention. Billy had a sudden idea. Rather than waiting to die, they could create chaos. He instructed Frenchie to call his girlfriend Sherry and have her plant bombs elsewhere to create a diversion. To buy Sherry some time, Frenchie acted as bait in the car while Billy set up the detonator in the trunk. They didn't anticipate that Homelander would arrive even faster than expected. Frenchie had to maintain his composure, showering Homelander with flattery, pretending to be a devoted fan. Although Homelander enjoys himself very much, he still insists on checking the carriages, but he doesn't find any abnormality under the perspective. It turns out that Billy has long been hiding. At this moment, the bomb was installed, and Billy immediately detonated it. Homelander heard the explosion and immediately rushed to the sky. Meanwhile, Translucent wasn't sitting still. By reading Huey's lips, he learned that his teammates were coming to rescue him, so he filled a cup with a yellow liquid and poured it on the transformer. Without the high voltage, Translucent easily broke out of the cage, only to run into Huey's standing guard. Huey held the detonator and warned him to get back in the cage, but a flicker of fear in his eyes was caught by Translucent. Using a mix of threats and persuasion, Translucent managed to intimidate Huey. Strolling towards the exit, the immense psychological pressure overwhelmed Huey. As Translucent turned invisible again, Huey finally snapped, pressing the detonator without hesitation, obliterating Translucent. Covered in blood, Huey was left with a swirl of mixed emotions, but now was not the time to relax. Since translucent skin couldn't be destroyed, it could be discovered by Homelander at any moment. They quickly gathered the scattered remains and packed them into a zinc-coated metal box. Billy planned to present a big gift to Homelander. This was just the first step in his revenge. With much more to come, Billy then contacted his old partner M, an experienced investigator. With his help, they quickly located Popclaw's residence. Popclaw was A-Train's secret girlfriend. If they could surveil Popclaw, they could uncover more secrets of Vought International. Billy brought out several large cameras, planning to sneak into Popclaw's apartment, but Huey mocked the outdated approach. In this day and age, all they needed was to hack into Popclaw's home network to have a 360-degree view without dead angles. The group exchanged glances and agreed on the plan. Huey and disguised themselves as broadband service technicians and went to Popclaw's house. Claimed to be Popclaw's fan and chatted with her, while Huey took the opportunity to go straight into the listening program. The process went unexpectedly smoothly, but just as they were about to leave, Huey ran into A-Train. Huey's heart raced, but A-Train seemed not to remember him. Feeling a mix of relief and anger, Huey was infuriated that this bastard had killed his wife just days ago and now acted as if nothing had happened. In a fit of impulse, Huey said something that made M's heart skip a beat.
Haven't we met before?
Maybe. I meet a ton of people.
It turns out that in their eyes, human life is indeed as insignificant as grass. Back in the surveillance van, they quickly discovered some clues. A-Train was going to race against Shockwave, and if he lost, he would be kicked out of the 7. To win, A-Train asked Popclaw for Compound V. Popclaw immediately objected, saying that Compound V was a double-edged sword. While it could enhance abilities, it was hard to control, and the last time it caused him to kill a civilian was the best example. But A-Train was determined and promised that if he won the race, he would make their relationship public. In the end, Popclaw relented. Billy saw this as an excellent opportunity to get leverage over the superheroes. All they needed to do was steal Compound V from A-Train's bag during the race. The day of the challenge arrived. The group had clear roles. Huey disguised himself as a reporter to keep watch for Frenchie. Frenchie hid in the ventilation ducts, waiting for Billy's signal to act. Billy mingled with the crowd, observing A-Train's movements, while was in charge of handling emergencies. With Homelander's grand entrance, the atmosphere reached a fever pitch. A-Train entered first. Seeing the right moment, Billy gave the signal. Frenchie started moving, but just then, Starlight walked toward the locker room. Seeing this scene, Huey was afraid something would go wrong and hurriedly called out to Starlight. Frenchie, hanging in midair, was nearly discovered. Luckily, Huey had met Starlight before, which saved Frenchie. Huey struck up a conversation to distract Starlight. Frenchie immediately went to work but found nothing. A-Train had hidden Compound V in another location. Seeing his opponent Shockwave enter the track, A-Train felt a twinge of unease. In a flash, he seemed like a different person, behaving with unusual excitement. Billy, watching closely, realized A-Train must have secretly injected Compound V. It looked like they would come up empty-handed. However, made a discovery and left the stadium alone. By then, A-Train and Shockwave were ready at the starting line. With the firing of the starting gun, both racers vanished from sight. The strong air currents almost knocking over the front row spectators. The high-speed camera replay showed A-Train crossing the finish line first, winning the race with a time of 342 milliseconds. They thought they had failed. But then found a breakthrough. He noticed Popclaw acting strangely. Popclaw, holding Compound V, anxiously awaited A-Train's post-race interview. She expected A-Train to announce their relationship, but his answer disappointed her. A-Train declared he was still single. Furious at this betrayal, Popclaw injected herself with Compound V without hesitation. Under the drug's influence, she went berserk, lifting hundreds of pounds of weights for an hour, astonishing Billy and the others. But the real excitement was yet to come. Popclaw unleashed her bone claws and began punching the air furiously, trying to release her pent-up energy. Just then, the landlord came to collect the rent. Because she was A-Train's secret girlfriend with no source of income, Popclaw had no choice but to use her charm to pay the rent. They ended up playing a uniform game, and as Popclaw became increasingly excited, she accidentally sat on the landlord, killing him instantly. As she calmed down, Popclaw panicked. Billy knew this was his chance. He and Frenchie approached Popclaw, claiming they could help her clean up the mess if she provided information on Compound V. Meanwhile, Homelander received a gift from Billy. The Deep had found the box containing Translucent's remains. Madeline remarked that this group must be insane, but Homelander disagreed. Thinking they were clever, his laser eyes couldn't see through zinc, and the box's exterior was made of zinc, with a taunting message on the lid. This was a direct declaration of war against Homelander. However, Billy and his team were unaware that Homelander's greatest advantage wasn't his superpowers, but his ruthlessness. A father and son had simply stared at Homelander on a plane, prompting Homelander's eyes to glow red as twin laser beams sliced the plane in half in an instant. And that was just a warm-up. The real show was yet to come. Homelander leaped into the air, and in the blink of an eye, he was inside the 1,000-meter-high skyscraper, leaving the furious Queen Maeve behind. Gritting her teeth, Homelander could have flown Queen Maeve up, but he chose to wait by the elevator. Homelander pushed the door open with a slap and Queen Maeve went up and subdued the assailant in 3 moves. Normally, that would have been enough, but Homelander was in a foul mood. He punched through a criminal's body, killing him instantly without a chance to scream. Of course, Homelander was meticulous and wiped the blood off his hand on the criminal's clothes before picking up an M416 from the floor. Queen Maeve immediately understood, extending her hands towards him as Homelander fired a burst at her. And these are just daily operations. Homelander had some quirks, like staring at his own portrait for no apparent reason. You might think he's narcissistic, but he's actually using his X-ray vision to spy. The guy has a bit of an Oedipus complex. Inside was Madeline from Vought International. Over the years, Madeline had leveraged the Seven, led by Homelander, to make a fortune, publicly. They were superheroes fighting evil, but in reality, they engaged in all sorts of shady dealings. Despite Vought International's numerous ventures, Madeline was never satisfied and always hoped to get the superheroes into the Department of Defense. This day, an opportunity arose. Flight 37, an intercontinental flight, faced a hijacking. Madeline instructed Homelander to rescue all passengers before the Department of Defense could intervene. This way, no one would dare oppose her proposal. By this time, the hijackers had fully taken control. Suddenly, the cabin door was forcibly opened, and the powerful air pressure instantly blew the hijacker at the door out of the plane. Queen Maeve charged in first, effortlessly lifting another hijacker into the air like a rag doll and snapping his neck with a single move. Another hijacker was approaching when 2 laser beams pierced his chest in an instant. There was no doubt that Homelander had arrived. After closing the door, calm returned to the cabin, and the passengers erupted in thunderous applause, chanting, "Long live Homelander!" Clearly, Homelander enjoyed such adulation. To boost his public image, he even interacted with 2 children. However, Queen Maeve noticed something was wrong. The cockpit door was shut tight. Homelander pushed the door open, finding a hijacker pointing a gun at the pilot. While the co-pilot was already dead, Homelander tried to persuade the hijacker to stay calm, but the hijacker's hand trembled, and he shot the pilot dead. Seeing this, Homelander immediately killed the hijacker with his laser vision, but he used too much force, damaging the control panel and sending the plane into a nosedive. Queen Maeve quickly tried to contact the ground with the radio, but it had also been destroyed. Homelander thought for a moment, then put on a reassuring smile and told the passengers that everything was under control. Did he have a plan? Not at all. He just didn't want to deal with the mess. Queen Maeve reaches out to stop Homelander and asks him to stall the plane from the outside, but Homelander refuses, citing a lack of footholds. Queen Maeve was desperate. "Fly over and push it back into position if you have to." Homelander still refused, saying that at his speed, he would likely tear through the plane. Queen Maeve realized he had a point. She then proposed Homelander ferry the passengers to the ground one by one. Homelander burst into laughter at the suggestion, expecting the mighty Homelander to play the role of a courier, making 123 trips back and forth. He wouldn't even consider it, even if he could do it. A child then asked if he would leave them behind. After calming the passengers once more, Homelander signaled Queen Maeve to leave. He opened the cabin door, and the sudden rush of air knocked over the flight attendant and the meal cart. Queen Maeve knew she couldn't save everyone, but she still hoped to save a few children at least. But Homelander flatly refused, explaining that if anyone survived, they would tell the world that it was his fault the plane crashed, which would create enormous trouble. At this point, the passengers realized Homelander's intention and tried to resist. What followed was another signature moment for Homelander. Homelander then grabbed Queen Maeve and jumped out of the plane, watching as it plummeted straight into the Atlantic Ocean. Later, rescue teams found the wreckage on the shore, with no survivors among the passengers. Seeing this, Homelander put on a solemn face. Of course, he seized the opportunity to manipulate the situation. He claimed that these deaths could have been avoided if they had arrived 3 minutes earlier. He blamed the tragedy on not being part of the defense establishment, which delayed their notification. Homelander even feigned deep emotion as he spoke. Madeline, watching Homelander on TV, felt particularly gratified. The uninformed public, seeing his impassioned speech, believed him to be a hero devoted to the country and its people. They expressed their support and even chanted his name in unison. This incident showed that Homelander's most terrifying trait was not his superpowers but his ability to twist the truth. But even though Homelander was so terrifying, someone provoked him by placing Translucent's corpse in front of him. Homelander, of course, chose to fight back but, frustrated by not knowing the identity of his opponent, had to put it aside temporarily. What angered him even more was the lack of reliable people around him. Queen Maeve still had a conscience and was not fully usable. Starlight was a newcomer and untrustworthy. A-Train was too dependent on Compound V and had become a superpowered junkie. The most infuriating was the Deep, who neglected his duties and spent all his time thinking about how to save fish. Homelander was at a loss. In contrast, the boys were gaining momentum. Following the clues provided by Popclaw, they finally focused their target near a noodle shop. A-Train would always bring Popclaw a bowl of sesame noodles every time she delivered Compound V. After staking out for several days, they finally noticed something. A person from the noodle shop carrying 2 bags and a gun aroused their suspicion. It was time to investigate. They followed the person to a supermarket, where they discovered a hidden door leading to an underground hideout guarded by several sentries. Seizing an unguarded moment, they reached a room at the end and began searching for Compound V. Frenchie's attention was drawn to an iron door. Approaching it, he saw a woman locked inside. Warned Frenchie with a look not to get involved, but Frenchie ignored him and opened the door. The guards arrived just then. Instead of shooting, they shouted, "Don't let her escape!" The woman leaped and instantly disemboweled a guard, then twisted forcefully, making the guard stop struggling entirely. The woman then rushed toward another guard and ferociously clawed at his abdomen. The scene left Huey dumbfounded. Kimiko then charged at Huey and the others. Thinking quickly, Frenchie used the iron door to block her initial attack. Luckily, Kimiko remembered something more important. Covered in blood, she headed to a nail salon. The owner panicked upon seeing Kimiko, and in a fit of screams, the owner was killed. At this moment, the boys made a significant discovery. While clearing the scene, they found a leftover Compound V syringe. It was clear that Kimiko was an experiment created by A-Train using Compound V. Though the purpose remained unknown, their immediate priority was to find Kimiko. Then, the group, following a tip, arrived at the nail salon, only to find A-Train already there. It turned out that after seeing the bodies of those unlucky guys, A-Train knew Kimiko had escaped. Using his speed advantage, he got there first. Billy immediately felt tense, knowing that A-Train could scour the entire city within half an hour. It's a fool's errand to get to Kimiko before A-Train does. But Frenchie was confident because he had found a torn page during the search. It mentioned Kimiko's hometown, so she must be at the train station. They set off immediately and found Kimiko there. Frenchie puts down the hypnotic bomb in her hand and tells Kimiko not to be nervous. Frenchie had felt a kinship with Kimiko at first sight. He had also been abused and imprisoned by his father, knowing well the yearning for home. After hearing Frenchie's story, Kimiko finally calmed down. Unexpectedly, a sudden emergency news broadcast caused Kimiko to go berserk. She sprinted from the electronics store to the platform. The boys caught up with her. Kimiko leaped off the platform, running along the tracks, but soon, her expression turned to terror. The next second, she was seized by the speeding A-Train. It wasn't until A-Train had run a considerable distance that the group realized what had happened. Kimiko, desperate to free herself, clawed at A-Train's eyes. In pain, A-Train let go, and the powerful inertia sent them rolling far before stopping. Knowing she was no match, Kimiko turned and ran, but could she really outrun A-Train? In an instant, A-Train caught up and delivered a powerful elbow strike. The terrifying impact smashed through the wall, and Kimiko only stopped when she collided with the next wall, falling to the ground. Seeing Kimiko trying to escape again, A-Train, now furious, grabbed her head and repeatedly smashed it against the wall. Anyone else's skull would have shattered by now. Frenchie, witnessing this, tried to rush in, but Billy stopped him just in time. Rushing up like that would be a death wish. Thinking quickly, Frenchie started shouting, "A-Train is here, everybody! Come see! A-Train is right there!" Seeing the crowd gathering, A-Train stopped. As his public image was paramount, A-Train then put on a fake smile, engaging with the fans swarming around him. Kimiko took the opportunity to slip away, with the boys following closely behind. Billy attempted to subdue Kimiko with a hypnotic bomb, but Frenchie stopped him. Frenchie wanted to try talking to Kimiko. What if he could convince Kimiko to join them? With a hopeful heart, Frenchie slowly approached, but Kimiko pounced instantly. Seeing this, Billy threw the hypnotic bomb, knocking them both out. A-Train, free of the fans, finds Popclaw first, suspecting that Kimiko's escape was a result of her tipping them off. A-Train initially coaxed Popclaw, telling her that Madeline had agreed to let them go public with their relationship, but only if she confessed whether she had leaked the information. Popclaw hesitantly told the truth, describing the faces of the boys. With tears in his eyes, A-Train reminisced about their first date with her.
I love you.
I love you too.
Then, in the next moment, A-Train injected Popclaw with a lethal dose, and she looked at him in disbelief before succumbing. Afterward, A-Train returned to the company. It turned out that this was all orchestrated by Homelander. Homelander warned him to stop using Compound V and to find out who was behind the disruptions quickly. Despite his immense dissatisfaction, A-Train had to show gratitude towards Homelander. Back at home, A-Train kept replaying videos of Popclaw from when she was alive. Suddenly, the screen changed, and A-Train's face went from dark to green, then quickly from green to red. He had spotted Frenchie in the video, prompting him and Black Noir to start investigating Frenchie's background. Unaware of being exposed, Frenchie happily prepared lunch for Kimiko. Perhaps he felt he had finally met someone who understood him, and his steps were noticeably lighter. He hoped his actions would win over Kimiko, but after being imprisoned for so long, Kimiko trusted no one. She lunged at Frenchie, but thanks to the chains, she couldn't reach him. Frenchie then receives a phone call from Sherry, who tells him that Black Noir has found her location, which means that Frenchie's safe house will be exposed. Frenchie immediately reported this to Billy, who suggested abandoning Kimiko and escaping alone. Frenchie knew Billy always used him as a tool, but this time he refused to comply. He poured his heart out to Kimiko before unlocking her chains. Kimiko's expression softened briefly, but before Frenchie could rejoice, she bolted out the door. A sense of profound disappointment washed over him, but there was no time for sorrow. Frenchie quickly gathered his things and fled. Unexpectedly, Black Noir arrived sooner than expected. Frenchie dared not look back as Black Noir closed in. Just as Black Noir was about to accelerate, a figure knocked him off his path. It turned out Kimiko had been secretly protecting Frenchie. She signaled for him to leave while she stayed behind to cover him. The fight was on. Kimiko struck first, but her sharp claws were laughable against Black Noir's armor. She was rapidly overpowered. Kimiko tried a side attack, but Black Noir's trademark skill was his uncanny throwing knives. Kimiko couldn't dodge the blade and fell to the ground, but she refused to give up because she knew that retreating even a step would mean pushing Frenchie towards certain death. But as a rookie, she was no match for Black Noir. Her feet were firmly pinned to the ground, and Black Noir didn't hold back, delivering a final blow that nearly sliced Kimiko in half. Kimiko collapsed in agony, but there was no regret in her eyes. She smiled as she closed her eyes. After a long time, Frenchie returned, heartbroken and unable to breathe. He didn't want Kimiko to feel cold even in death. But then, a miracle happened. Kimiko came back to life, and her wounds healed at a visible rate. Thus, the boys gained another fierce member. Meanwhile, Billy's side was making rapid progress, having locked their target on the Archbishop Ezekiel. However, the place was heavily guarded, making it difficult for him and Mim to make any move. So, they turned their attention to Huey. It turned out Huey had plenty of tricks up his sleeve. Tickets to see Ezekiel cost $15,000, which they didn't have. Huey persuaded Starlight to sneak him into the VIP club, but as soon as he entered, he ran into Homelander. Homelander learned that Huey had gotten in through Starlight's connections. He gave Huey a fake smile while calculating how to teach him a lesson. As a special guest, Homelander performed a baptism ceremony for the wealthy attendees. Soon, it was Huey's turn, and from Homelander's expression, it was clear he had bad intentions. Suddenly, Homelander pressed Huey underwater. Seconds ticked by, but Homelander didn't let go. Just as Huey was about to drown, Homelander pulled him up. If Homelander didn't care about his public image, today would have been the end. Afterward, Huey found Ezekiel and tried to blackmail him with a video to reveal information about Compound V, but his phone had gotten wet and malfunctioned. No need to panic. Now watch Huey perform. Huey vividly described the scene. Seeing through the lies, Ezekiel angrily stretched his arms and choked Huey, trying to crush him. In a life and death moment, Huey had a quick thought and said his partner also had the video. If anything happened to him, it would go viral the next day, exposing how the Archbishop recorded the beautiful moments of life. Hearing this, Ezekiel had no choice but to comply and reveal the details about Compound V. Huey immediately informed him. M was surprised at how capable the kid was and couldn't help but praise him a bit.
You are a natural, kid.
Not a compliment.
M and Billy followed the clues to a newborn hospital, where they discovered that every 4 bag was filled with Compound V, which was then injected into the infants. Just as they were about to examine the babies, one suddenly opened its eyes, shooting out twin beams of laser. Billy instantly realized that superpowered individuals were not born but created in a lab. Without wasting time, Billy quickly collected samples. As they were preparing to leave, security personnel suddenly burst in and started shooting without warning. They quickly took cover behind a pillar, under the enemy's suppressive fire. They couldn't move an inch. Billy had a sudden idea and told him to provide cover fire while he dashed out. Indicating that he had a plan, Billy pulled the incubator along the power cord, then lifted the super baby and used it to shoot, instantly cutting 2 enemies in half. Now, only 1 enemy remained, but his weapon seemed to be malfunctioning. The enemy hesitated, unsure whether to shoot or not. Fortunately, the super baby was ready again, and a burst of blue light instantly shredded the enemy. Although amazed by the baby's power, Billy didn't keep the baby but gently placed it back in the incubator. Following this lead, they uncovered a massive conspiracy. It turned out that Vought International was disguising Compound V as baby vaccines and distributing them to 53 hospitals nationwide. There were no naturally born superpowered individuals, except for Homelander. This guy was like a black hole with no traceable information. Even with Compound V as evidence, they still felt something was missing, so Billy turned his attention to Kimiko. She was a living test subject. However, Kimiko's inability to speak posed a problem for everyone. At this moment, a TV show gave him an idea, so he sought out Mesmer. Mesmer could know what someone was thinking just by touching them, but a proud superpowered individual wouldn't easily comply. Animum was prepared. He offered his hand for Mesmer to read his mind.
How do you know about Cleo?
Cleo is Mesmer's daughter and is currently being held in the juvenile detention center where used to work. If Mesmer agreed to help, could arrange for him to see his daughter once a week. They then began the mind-reading session with Kimiko. As soon as Mesmer touched her hand, he sensed her deep-seated fear. Kimiko's painful memories are forcibly awakened, and she instantly goes berserk and breaks Mesmer's arm. Fortunately, Frenchie calmed her down. However, Mesmer refused to cooperate further. Threatened to break his other arm if he didn't continue. After a simple bandage, Mesmer uses his other hand to sense, and this time Kimiko restrains her fear. Finally, they learned Kimiko's true identity. It was a terrorist stronghold, and Kimiko was among them. It turned out that Vought International was not only creating superheroes but also supervillains. After all, with crime, superheroes could earn their keep. Billy suggests that Kimiko be wiped out immediately. Terrorists are no good, let alone superpowered ones, but Frenchie believed in Kimiko's good nature and tried to get her to tell everyone who she was. However, Kimiko genuinely couldn't speak. In desperation, Kimiko took Mesmer's hand and asked him to sense her thoughts again. This time, Mesmer saw an island, the place where Kimiko grew up. Terrorists had killed Kimiko's parents, kidnapped her and her brother, and forced them to join their organization. Kimiko was just looking for a chance to save her brother. After learning the truth, Billy no longer troubled them. Billy approached his former boss, Susan, hoping to exchange the evidence he had for FBI resources. Susan knew Billy's demands were high, but she didn't expect him to be this audacious. He asked for an exorbitant salary, for the boys to be stationed in the federal building, and for Homelander to be prosecuted within the legal framework. Susan could agree to the first 2 demands, but she pretended not to hear the last one. Joking aside, that was Homelander. Provoking him could endanger millions. Billy was shocked by Susan's cowardice and decided to go it alone.
We'll take down Vought ourselves.
But then they realized Huey was missing. It turned out he had gone to watch Starlight's speech. The speech itself was nothing but recitation. Starlight didn't want to be a puppet, so she asked the sound engineer to cut the music and made a shocking statement. Her words sent the deep. Who was watching on TV?
What's immoral is the guy who shoved his dick in my face. Shit.
Into turmoil. What exactly was the entanglement between them? Find out in the next episode.